Hariva, Gaura Hariva. Nitai Gaura Hariva, 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 Gaura Hariva. Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki. Tried to take you to Africa, but I see it's a bumpy road. Safari is not easy, but thank you. Hare Krishna.
You can continue till Maharaj is coming. He should be here in some minutes.
Okay. 20. And he's there. Just tell them to sing until Maharaj comes. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya.
Hare Krishna. Herzlich willkommen hier bei uns im Krishna Tempel. Very warm welcome to our Krishna Temple Sunday program. Gibt es jemanden, der kein Englisch versteht? Okay, so we'll do it in both languages. So I just go briefly to the program. We'll have a lecture right now starting with His Holiness Chananda Goswami Maharaj, and then at 5 o'clock there will be a vegetarian feast served for all of you. Then at 6:15 there will be a japa workshop where you can try out mantra meditation on beats for yourself, and then at 7 there will be a temple ceremony from 7 to 8, and 8 to 9:30 there will be also more singing like we just did. So auf Deutsch, jetzt gibt es gleich einen Vortrag von Janananda Goswami Maharaj, und dann um 5 Uhr gibt es ein Festessen, 6:15 Uhr Japa Workshop Meditation zum Ausprobieren, und von 7 bis 8 Tempelzeremonie, und dann nochmals von 8 bis halb 10 mehr Mantras. So very briefly about His Holiness Janananda Goswami Maharaj. Very happy that he's here today with us. He just came from Lyon, France, and he's staying at New Mayapur, which is a devotee community in France. And Maharaj is originally coming from the UK, but he took initiation in 1972 from our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, and ever since he has been traveling all over the world. He's been to New Zealand, to the Philippines, to Malaysia for a longer time, and also to Africa. And so we're very happy that today he's here with us in Switzerland. And without further ado, Maharaj, I would like to hand over to you. Hare Krishna. Yes. So if everybody could come a little bit further, then we have some more space for the guests who come a little bit later. And also, if there's a need for German translation, für diejenigen, die gerne eine Übersetzung hätten vom Englischen ins Deutsche, würden wir uns da hinten in der Ecke
Did you bring my feet? You know, we have a little chanting first. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Jnana Timirandasya Dhananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So welcome everybody today to the temple here in Zurich. We have a simultaneous translation going on. If anybody, needs German translation, thank you. Can you understand English, everybody? Are you okay? Mine is probably a little more English than usual. Sort of. We come from, this body was made in England, so it has certain conditioning with the language, and we call it pronunciation. Sometimes it's called slang, but the English term is pronunciation, dialect. You probably have that between German and Swiss German, huh? You have German and Swiss German, is that right? Slightly different. And even probably within Switzerland, different dialects are there. So I hope you can, follow what I'm speaking. And today we're going to, I believe the topic is exactly, Damodar here.
Difference between the spiritual and material existence.
Material and spiritual existence. Yes. Okay. So I thought we'd start by reading a verse. Is that okay? If we read from Bhagavad Gita, one verse. Is that okay? You don't mind? Let's see. Here. Many of you are familiar, I believe, with the text called Bhagavad Gita. You may have read various versions of this book. Don't worry, you'll get familiar later on. It takes a little time. Yeah. It's all right. They very quickly express themselves when they're in anxiety or stress. As adults, we might somehow or another cover it over a little bit, or it might come out a little bit less immediately. And children are very open books in that sense. So I thought we'd read a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. There are many, many commentaries on this book. In different languages also, many translations are there. And probably many of you have been familiar with this, amongst many other books on spiritual quest, philosophical literatures, texts, trying to understand the purpose of life, and is there a life beyond this one? Does spirit? Is it spirit? Is it like a different substance to matter? Where does consciousness come from? Where do feelings come from? Is there a living entity that continues in this lifetime into other lifetimes? Many different questions may have been asked, and to some extent we could say philosophy and different lines of thought may delve into these subjects throughout the course of history. The text Bhagavad Gita, we could say in all, sometimes people consider this a religious text. Many times when we meet people they say, is this a religion? And that is a deeper question than it sounds. Without understanding the real meaning of religion, it can be misunderstood to mean, is it one of the sectarian groups that proclaim, monopoly or whatever it is over the truth, or over a God, if such things should exist. Bhagavad Gita is knowledge which isn't really, let's say, directed towards that kind of religious idea. It's directed towards self-realization. It's directed towards understanding the nature of this world, understanding the nature of the self, the relationship of the living conscious being with the material world, the nature of that conscious being in eternity or in spirituality, the nature of the supreme being, the relationship of the supreme being with that which emanates from that supreme being, as is common doctrine amongst most theistic persons. But Bhagavad Gita approaches it in a, you could say in reality, non-sectarian, non-denominational, non-discriminatory in that sense way. Is simply knowledge. The knowledge may have appeared to be more prominent in a certain history, historical time, place and circumstance, but knowledge is knowledge. It is not something which is created as such. Theories may be created, and different types of speculations, but actual knowledge is really meant to be that which is permanent, that which applies in reality. In the material world, our knowledge is related to the changing phenomena of this world which we perceive, which we experience. And it's a kind of knowledge in the ancient Sanskrit language called avidya. science, philosophy, mostly is within the category of relativity, related to changing phenomena, and the actual conclusions are often not fixed. They're being reviewed, they're revised, but real knowledge is something permanent. This is one, you could say, from the point of view of analysis, the point of view of conclusions, is the difference between spiritual and material. And even, in other words, spiritual knowledge is a permanent feature which applies to all time and circumstance, whereas material knowledge is one which is related to a certain time, place and circumstance. It doesn't necessarily rise above it, it is not knowledge of it and its workings. But spiritual knowledge is that which is permanently existing. It doesn't depend upon time, place, circumstances. It doesn't depend upon where one is or who one is. It is permanent knowledge which is applicable in every situation, you could say. Now, material knowledge also is described in Bhagavad Gita in terms of its, let's say, more permanent feature, not necessarily the detailed descriptions of which sometimes we become very much involved in, but the real principle of material knowledge. So I'm going to read one verse now from this text, which really has nothing to do with somebody's belief or doctrine. It's just knowledge coming down about life. What is life? What is it? So this is in the 15th chapter. If you do wish to follow, or you have a copy, you may follow. Tvavimo purusho loke ksharashcha kshara evacha kshara sarvani bhutani kutasto kshara uchate. This is Krishna speaking. He's speaking to his devotee, but he's speaking to all of us. Knowledge for our benefit. There are two classes of beings: the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. Our spiritual teacher, who brought this message throughout the world, this message of Krishna consciousness, the Hare Krishna movement, explains a little bit about this verse. As already explained, the Lord, in his incarnation as Vyasadeva, compiled the ancient text called Vedanta Sutra. Here, the Lord is giving, in summary, the contents of that great text, Vedanta Sutra. He says that the living entities, who are innumerable, unlimited, can be divided into two classes: the fallible and the infallible. The living entities are eternally separated parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When they are in contact with the material world, they are called Jiva Bhuta. And the Sanskrit words given here, Kshar Sarvani Bhutani, mean that they are fallible. Those who are in oneness with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, are called infallible. Oneness does not mean that they have no individuality, but that there is no disunity. They are all agreeable to the purpose of the creation. Of course, in the spiritual world, there is no such thing as creation. But since the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in the Vedanta Sutra, is the source of all emanations, that conception is explained. We could give the example perhaps of the sun. The sun is existing for how long? Who can say? And similarly, the sun rays are existing. However, the sun rays emanate from the sun, but they're in one sense created by the sun, but they exist simultaneously. As long as the sun is there, sun rays are there. It's a material example, but it gives some idea that the living entity, earlier in this Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has explained that Faveham Jatuna Samnatvam Neme Janati Paha to Arjuna, that you have existed eternally. All these kings have existed eternally. I have existed eternally. We've all existed eternally. Only the body of that eternal living entity is subject to destruction. So immediately in the beginning stage of this text, Krishna is indicating, you can say, one of the distinct natures of the person. When we say I, Atma in Sanskrit, sometimes we say Atma, the living being. Sometimes it may be used to describe the wholeness in this material world of body, mind, soul, etc. But in reality, this refers to the spiritual aspect of our, you could say, being. Not the physical one. The physical one, anyone can understand, has a beginning and an end. It's like a dress, which Krishna explains earlier, that we may change. You may change your dress as much as you wish. You're still the same person, basically, only the dress is changing. So the body is likened, the physical body is likened to a dress. We all wear different dresses right now. We may say, well, I don't have much choice. You have some choice. You can do some adjustment, but basically we receive a particular physical body, and also explained in Bhagavad Gita according to our past lifetimes. The soul in this lifetime, the living entity, interacts with the world around us in such and such a way. We become attached to certain things, likes and dislikes. We interact favorably, unfavorably, in so many ways. And this creates a reaction. Scientifically, the law of cause and effect is there. It's the same principle. It creates a reaction which the soul, although the living entity in one sense is of a different nature, superfluous above the workings of the material energy or beyond it, we become covered over it. I'm sure we've all had the experience of watching some movie or some television or whatever program, and how much we may identify with that program and get lost in that particular world, identifying with it, becoming affected emotionally by what's going on, etc. And maybe at the end we realize it was just a movie or something. But during that period we become very much implicated. Or we could give an example of a dream. When we sleep at night, usually if we remember how much we identify with that dream when we are actually experiencing whatever. That's on a subtle platform. Mental platform, we could say. But it's the same principle. We identify with it, we feel emotional results because of our identification with it. Sometimes we're elated, sometimes we're afraid, sometimes we become very disturbed, upset, sometimes we become angry, sometimes we become very enthusiastic or emotionally, whatever. Different types of reactions are there. The same thing happens with the world externally through the gross body, that we become very much carried, you could say, carried by the association or the effects of what's going on around us. The soul is described in the Bhagavad Gita also as like a witness. Just as we're watching a TV or something, we're apart from it, but we're affected by it. So one of the aspects of these teachings is to, when it says fallible here, Shara, akshara, infallible, means that we're controlled. Fallible means we're basically, it means able to fall in literal terminology, able to fall. Infallible means unable to fall or not falling. So it really means to fall into this illusion, to fall into the illusion of misidentification, identifying ourselves with, here we're living in Switzerland. How many of you would call yourself Swiss? Swiss. Let me have a look. I mean, don't get too philosophical about this, please. Just be, mundane or materially speaking. How many of you were, body at least, were born in Switzerland? Anyone? Not so many. Where were you born? You were born in Switzerland. Who's not born in Switzerland? Where were you born? Oh God, a lot of you. Where are you born? Huh?
In Lithuania.
Lithuania. You were born where?
Nova Scotia, Canada.
Oh, Canada. Oh, what an amazing place.
Argentina.
Argentina. Wow, we're really international here. Pardon? France. Ah, bonjour, bonjour. Brazil? Russia. Where else are you born? India. Wow. Anywhere else? Germany. Wow. Anywhere else? Argentina also. South America. Wow, far out. Bangladesh. Wow. Italy. Ooh, wonderful. I'm going to Italy on Wednesday. First time since 1969. Whew. Last time I was there. Anywhere else?
Kosovo.
Ukraine. Jai, welcome. Anywhere else? Latvia. Many of you are from Eastern, what we call Eastern European countries. We can see the result of identification with a country. Of course, different people are different in the way that they identify and the reaction or the result of that identification. But oftentimes that identification dictates our relationships, our behavior. Now, even the relationship between men and women has a large degree is dictated by the obvious different identities which we have in terms of gender. What other forms of identification do we have? Race, color, religion, age, generation, occupation, particular habits which we have. I don't know about in Switzerland, but in every country usually there's, people have their, favorite, let's say, football team or something. They identify with men, maybe ladies also. And they get quite excited, sometimes very angry when, their opponents, sometimes they fight over this identification. So this is a material identification. It's a temporary one. When we say we're Swiss or we're Russian or English, French, Canadian, Argentinian, Indian, Bangladeshi, whatever it may be, German, Italiano, Braziliano, etc. This is just a label. You're wearing blue coat, orange coat, white coat, red coat, green coat. Who are you? I'm green coat. Obviously, are you joking? I mean, you trying to be funny or what? We understand. That's okay. You're wearing a green coat. You could wear a blue coat in a second's time if you wish. Take that one off or put one on. It's not our real identity. So this body which we describe, we appeared. For instance, most of you have come, I guess, through that door over there. Is that correct? So you've come in through that door. But you existed beyond that door. As far as I'm concerned, I didn't know you existed before you came in that door. Because that's rather limited. But you might think like that. Or you may have come through there or somewhere else. But generally you've come through there. But that doesn't mean to say you're created or that's your origin there. That's just the entry. So we may have entered into this world through a particular body in Argentina or in Italy or Switzerland or somewhere. And we tend to identify self with that particular port of entry in this lifetime. and we relate to others accordingly. I was brought up in England, and at the time when I was brought up, just after the Second World War, I didn't know what was going on. But when we became a little conscious, there was this kind of like Cold War going on. I call it Cold War, of identifying we are from Eastern Bloc, we're from the Western Bloc, and without any knowledge beyond that, there was this kind of immediate kind of feeling of animosity almost towards those in the Eastern Bloc and vice versa. Meaningless in reality, but it's created by this false identification. This is material existence is founded or based around this false identification, a fallible identification. Being a human being is another one. Sometimes people say, well, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a human. This is again only a description of our present situation within our journey, in this sojourn in this material world. The soul, or the spiritual aspect, is beyond these temporary, you could say, labels or identities. It's called false ego in the material world. We talk a lot about ego. Oh, you've got a big ego, but it's not. It means you have let's say, an inflated false ego, an inflated idea about your, position. But we've all got false ego means literally false identity. If you meet someone on the street, you ask them who they are, they say, I don't know. Or they say, I am, who's famous here in Switzerland, I don't know. Who's the most famous person in Switzerland? Charlie Chaplin? He lived in Switzerland, right? Charlie? I'm Charlie Chaplin. Yeah, sure. Pull the other leg. Say in English. Yeah. Some people are actually behaving like that. Some they try to imitate, or they try to put on a show of being Napoleon Bonaparte or somebody or another in history. People are a little crazy. I'm Jesus Christ. Well, you say you're God, everybody will think, oh, very good. But you say one of the other things, think you're a little crazy. And no, you're not. But this identity is there, this false identity. You go crazy. You're not. So in one sense, in the material world, to say I am this, I am that, is a little crazy. It's okay in terms of, you have to have some form of identity to relate with each other. That's natural. But to believe that's all there is, nothing beyond that, it's a bit limited. It's not a very deep form of understanding or a very deep appreciation of life, I would say. Probably most of you have thought, well, maybe there is something more to life than meets the eye. There's more than just this. Is this all there is to my ever existence, this one lifetime finished? Why do we have so many rules, morals, principles, and so on? What for? What's the use of it? It doesn't mean much if you have that type of mentality. But if we start to think that maybe there is a little more to life, why are there all these different philosophies and religions and so on and so forth? What's the point of it all? There is something very deep. Something that's called you, the real ego. The false ego is constantly clashed. There's constant clash, friction there because we've all got different false egos. We've all got different, as a result, we all have different bodies with different natures and different desires and different identities and so on and so forth. Sometimes it's more or less forced upon us. We have to act in such a way as somebody else who has a different label. We may want or not want, but sometimes it's forced upon us. National identity or whatever indoctrinations we undergo in our lives to believe or not believe we're this body. But with a little bit of self-reflection, a little bit of deeper looking at life, we probably can understand there's something common between all living entities. Whether human or non-human, there's something very common there. There's something which is linking all of us. Certain characteristics, certain aspirations which we all have, which may have their variation according to our karma and desire, but the principle is the same. We're all looking for certain things. Every living entity is pleasure-seeking. Every living entity wants to be loved and to give love. Every living entity wishes a certain type of peace in their own being and in one sense around us. It may be different how we view that, but the principle is there. But you don't find it in the material world. It's almost like in Taoism, I had the saying that the Creator has put happiness in a place that you will never find. We look in the land, the air, the sea, here and there, but you won't find real happiness. It's hidden within the core of our consciousness. We don't usually look there. We just use our consciousness to try to enjoy, exploit, etc., the world around us, whether it's on the subtle or gross platform. This is material existence. This material world is for those who are looking in that direction. That's the general nature of the world we see with our material body, mind and senses. It's for those who have this desire to see themselves in the center and to identify with a particular situation they're in and to try to enjoy within that situation. This is material existence, it's temporary. The results of such an endeavor have a beginning and an end, because the object through of which we are trying to relate has a beginning and an end. It's called fallible. Therefore our endeavors are fallible because they have a beginning and an end. On the other side, something which has been talked about since, of course, always going to be talked about, because it's the actual reality of life in one sense. You could say material life or material existence does have its eternal nature, but the form which it takes is constantly changing, and our understanding of it is constantly evolving, reviving, and revising rather, etc., etc., without really touching on the real essence of life. So Krishna is he is explaining to Arjuna the nature of both. Both are to be, when we're living in this world, which we are at the moment, you could say, to understand the nature of the world and to understand the interactions and why we're in the situation we're in and why others see things very differently than we do. What to speak of other species within the human species, within those who are in Switzerland, you'll find numerous varieties of opinions about pretty much everything. From top to bottom, what to speak of different species, but we do tend to see things with me in the center. This is the false ego. The real ego is to see things on the platform of the spiritual aspect. To see, in this particular case, it's described here, to see things in relationship with the absolute and not just the relative. Our absolute position. And that is not dependent. Whatever happens in this relative world, as we see many, many statements are there in different texts, explained by different great spiritually advanced personalities, Vidyavanaya Sampane Brahmani Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shripakicha, to those who are actually in spiritual, realize their spiritual identity, the spiritual nature, the Brahman, the spiritual existence, are seeing with equal vision. Everyone, a man, a woman, a dog, a cat, a bird, an elephant, every living entity. They see the spiritual presence therein. And they deal on the platform of a different nature. They don't see the other as an object of my pleasure. They see them as, although they're in different bodies and you may relate accordingly, like if you come across, for instance, a snake or a living entity in a lion body or a snake, you may react differently to if you come across a living entity in a dog's body or in a fish's body or a living entity in a human body. And amongst humans, you relate differently too. And it may be in knowledge or it may not be in knowledge, but you will relate differently. Those in knowledge may also, but they'll see beyond the physical and mental condition, they'll see the spiritual nature therein. And they'll simply feel, you could say, compassion or whatever, inspiration by that association, whatever it is, but they won't be identifying on the bodily platform like everyone else. Friends, enemies, and so on. They'll just use common sense and adjust accordingly to do the needful. But spiritually seeing equality there in every living entity. When we talk about a person, oh, they're very beautiful, they're very strong, they're very this, they're that, that is describing a particular karmic situation which we happen to be in. It's not describing the personality themselves. It's just, as I said earlier, it's just like describing the dress, describing the nation you're from, or whatever it may be, but it's not describing the nature of the person. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna begins to explain, it is preliminary knowledge, the nature of the soul, simple aspects of the soul, eternality. We never die. Never was there a time when you did not exist, nor I, nor all these kings. We just experience death in the form of the death of this body, the changing of situations which we're in, the loss of different situations. We experience these things. But it's not the actual, it's called anarto pashamam shukshad bhakti yoga hokshaje, that it is superfluous. It's just not really us, just like in a dream. We're experiencing death or we're experiencing whatever. All kinds of different experiences are there. But it's not really us, and we realize that when we wake up. It was a dream. Material life is another kind of dream. We have one record, devotee named Havi, I think, produced in 70s or something like that. Night and day dream. We think of the night dream, but the daytime dream for the spiritually awake, like Krishna says, what is night for the self-realized is day for the interest, for the materialistic person, and vice versa. Daytime is also a dream for those who are spiritually awake. It's another kind of dream, identifying with what we're not, Maya. We're Maya, illusion. We're thinking with this body and so on and so on. Busy as trying to fulfill the never-ending flow of desires that enter into this mind. Busy. They never end, and they get really disturbed sometimes. Can't fulfill them. They don't go right, we become upset. All due to this lack of understanding of who we are. This is the only solution to the problems, is this understanding of our real identity. No matter what we do within the realm of this false ego, the false identification with this body, will not solve the problem. You can change your identity, change your religion, change your sex, change your dress, change just about anything you can, but you're still in the same boat. You're still in the same position, basically, as and until we realize our spiritual identity. I saw one time on a bus in New Zealand, there's something, I'm sure you've heard of this, it's called the rat race. Have you heard of the rat race? The rat race, something in the world of, in the commercial world, where you go up the ladder, corporate ladder, whatever it is, competing, trying to get on, trying to be the best or whatever, the rat race. We're all running in the rat race in some way or another. And it said on the bus, it said, even if you win the rat race, you are still a rat. So even if we do get along in this material world and we got good karma and somehow or another we're going well, so to speak, we're still in the material world. We're still fallible. At any moment we can lose it all. Crack. Finished. Crash. We see this in history, nations, everything. Comes into being, stays for a while, and gone. But the soul is the witness, watching, passenger in the chariot of this mind. Ding. Going from this lifetime to that lifetime, according to our karmas. And what to do, and that's one way of existing. You just keep existing with. You can say, well, that sounds exciting. I don't mind being a dog. I don't mind being a hog or whatever it is. Different experiences. You can say that, no problem. That's what most people, most people are doing, knowing or unknowing. But there's a much deeper and a much more, let's say, fulfilling level of existence, spiritual existence. And even if you are living in the material so-called world, if one has some spiritual realization, then one's existence in this world is of a much more satisfying, you could say, nature. Much more. Not affected. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks a lot about that, the methodology of not being affected by happiness and distress, heat and cold, birth and death, you name it, duality. Otherwise the tendency is we do get affected by duality. It's difficult just to tolerate without being disturbed, without this higher understanding. And it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. That's just ABC of spiritual realization. We're not the body. ABC. First step. It's the beginning stage. And towards the other parts of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna may be explaining a little bit more about the nature of the soul in eternity, constitutionally. Like we may know, a lot of people don't know, what am I doing in this world? You know, who are you? Well, I don't really know what I should do. Are you a doctor? Are you a lawyer? They change their studies 10 times before they finally decide what to do. Not very clear, even materially, what we're doing, or what we could do, where we fit in, etc., etc. That it's another aspect of uncertainty in the material world. For one who's on the spiritual platform, that's something else. They're not affected by all these things anyway, but they know what their duty is. They know what the purpose of life is. They know what their service to others is, etc., etc. Doubts are removed. One of the main threads in Bhagavad Gita is to remove all of doubts. Arjuna had plenty of doubts about what he should do and what he shouldn't do. So with knowledge, all those doubts were removed. He knew clearly what his role, spiritually speaking, as well as materially, was in this lifetime. And it's not, let's say, it's not so black and white when you're on the material platform. It looks the same. It just looks like another variety of, life. How somebody is maybe driving a car, maybe they're cooking, maybe they're working in some occupation, maybe they're whatever, doing the similar things. But it's the consciousness. It's not so much what we do, the consciousness in which we act. Are we acting in material consciousness or spiritual consciousness? What is dictating our motive? What is our motive? What is dictating what we're doing? Is it for our own material sense gratification? Or is it for spiritual elevation? So we're trying. The idea, you see, because it's not even depending on the dress. We may be dressed with strange clothes compared to others in Switzerland. People may think people are odd. Sometimes people identify by the clothes that you wear or the hair that you have, and so on and so forth. So that may be there. People may identify, but that's not the essence. One wears particular clothes to facilitate one's particular objectives in life sometimes. So you choose that choice you have. But the essence, Prabhupada was asked that question, our teacher, is it important? Prabhupada said, not really. You can wear blue, green, black, white, whatever. It's not the most important thing. Whatever serves, whatever assists us in our goals. So our goal is self-realization. So naturally, self-realization or spiritual realization, every form of yoga, every form of spirituality knows there's an element of sensual control. There's an element of, mind, bringing the mind under a certain amount of control. And the easiest way to do that is by practically engaging it, not just retracting it from, let's say, the sense objects, but rather to engage our senses, engage our mind in activities that gradually help us to realize our spiritual identity. And that's the path that at least we have been given and which we're trying to pursue, where you can work in what appears to be material existence, material life, the material world, as which everyone identifies here with. You can work in the same way with a family, with job, etc., etc., and at the same time cultivate one's spiritual existence apart from that, related to it, but apart from it. So thus not being overly affected by the reactions of our interaction with the material world or the situation we find ourselves in, and being peaceful in the midst of turmoil. and being happy in the face of distress. That doesn't mean callousness, it doesn't mean carelessness, it's another thing. It's not that one becomes totally oblivious and don't care about others who are suffering. Quite the opposite. One feels self-composed, but one feels very sad to see others who are in a condition of fallibility, where they're being affected by the world around them, or relationships, or the karma that they're undergoing. And one who has that understanding knows the solution, the real solution. It may not be immediately able to apply that knowledge or whatever, but the real solution is to help each other to realize our spiritual identity. And then there will be peace, because spiritually we are all of the same quality. We are equal spiritually. Materially we are not. No amount of endeavor to make equality on the material platform, it will not succeed. There's differences due to karma and desire. But spiritually, we all have the same quality. So, spiritual or Bhagavad Gita teaching is to help us to realize our spiritual nature. And that is the solution to all problems. And even within this world, one can live very happily and peacefully, and share that with others around us. And gradually, we could say, real unity. Our spiritual teacher, when he first came to the West, explained this principle to teach the techniques of spiritual life in such a way to bring about unity and peace in society, even within this world. It sounds a nice idea, something which is a dream or something, but it's not. It's the actual reality. We should be peaceful. We should be happy. We may want that inside, but it's difficult to attain. Okay, so our time is passing by. If anyone has any question, you're most welcome. Somebody's standing up quickly here. Damodar. I would recommend, if you haven't got, to please get a copy of Bhagavad Gita. And we have it in German. You have it in French. Do you do?
Yes.
You're very hesitant about that answer there. Maybe. Yeah, we have it in French, but I have it. If you need a French one, you can. We have them in the car there. French. Maybe other languages. Portuguese for Brazilian people. Spanish for those from Argentina or someone like that. Italiano. We have Italian. Russian. Every language. But at least in German and English you have, right? Definitely. So what can I say? When it opens up the door of our inner consciousness, and it's just it's like waking up from a dream. Whether a good one or a bad one, it's like waking up to see ourselves a little bit more. It's not a bad idea. You want to enjoy yourself, and it's a good idea to find out who you are. So this is one of the major aspects of Bhagavad Gita. So take it on board. It describes time, karma, the material nature, the absolute, the creation, how we got here, how we can get out of here. Everything is described in here. It's nothing to do with a particular dogmatic sectarian thing. It's just knowledge of existence, that's all. Simple. Eternally existing. Any questions? Question? Yeah. What is your name? Pravita? Pavitra. That's a nice name. Spiritual name. May have to turn it on. Are you from Switzerland?
Yes.
Oh, wow. We have a genuine Swiss person with us here. We're having some technological problems here with the microphone. Let's see. I can't imagine what they did before microphones were invented. What did they do? Maybe they spoke louder.
I can speak loud. Yes.
You speak loud and I'll speak louder. Okay.
Thank you very much for your lecture. My question is, when we work in just normal work,
Normal situation.
spend 8 to 9 hours at work, and it's really difficult to remember Krishna in this time, because you have to do this and this and this, and then we are in material consciousness, I think, near the whole time. And my question is, in the evening and in the morning, of course, we try to do spiritual activities and be in spiritual consciousness, but is it possible also to get real happiness when we spend so much time in material activities? And
Yeah. This is common. I mean, obviously not everybody here is feeling what you're experiencing. Maybe others are not even feeling how to maintain spiritual consciousness in that situation at all. And some are. So traditionally in human society there's a very scientific structure. And now in our present situation it's not the same. We may have a job, it may be, I don't know what you do, working in office or something or another, wherever it may be. It's almost like an unnecessary creation of our modern civilization. Most of the occupations are quite unnatural. They're not so easy. You're in an office doing IT, or on the line with somebody in Vietnam and somebody in Brazil and somebody in wherever, America, here and there, talking about stuff which really has no meaning whatsoever to life. Zero meaning. And all kinds of stuff. Amazing how much stuff we've created to talk about. It's incredible. But in more of a natural society, occupations would be more predominantly about what is necessary to exist simply in this world, and spending the vast majority of one's energy, human beings, on the spiritual aspect. So farming was a predominant aspect of previous society, and even today in some cultures it still is, which is a much less let's say challenging situation from this particular perspective. It's very easy to see when you're working on the land, everything's relationship. In your case, you're saying Krishna meaning the supreme being. It's very easy to see. You're working with nature. It's his nature. It's quite easy to see his presence in nature. Not difficult, but we tend to get very distant from nature. You can still go into nature and appreciate the greatness of nature, but it's not the same as living and working with nature in a natural